everyone, welcome back to The Winning Agenda. My name's Jesse Muehlman-Marshall. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a follow-up on the card value video that I put out about a week or so ago, before most people had their alpha product. Hopefully, if you're a backer of the Kickstarter, you've received your alpha boxes and you've enjoyed deck building, opening packs, getting into the cards, doing a bit of trading. I know I certainly have over the last week. I've spent far too much of my spare time, what little of it I have at the moment, trading cards, sending them all the way over to America, trading with a few people locally here in Australia, and teaching some people to play in the store as well. In a couple of days' time, we've got our first sealed event in our store. We're going to have hit the player cap of 16 players and have a full complement of people there playing sealed and learning the game, which I'm super excited about. We'll have some photos and video of that up on the channel, and we'll send some over to the Sorcery team as well. Today, what we're going to do, though, is a little bit of an update on that market or card value video that I did last week. So at that point, what I was doing was talking you through how to think about the EV or expected value of a booster box based on the number of different hit slots that you're going to have within the box. I thought that that would hopefully be a helpful way for people to get their head around how much single cards might be worth if the box value was at a particular level, based on the value of different things like uniques to elites, the ratio of how much of a unique is worth versus an elite versus a foil unique. And when you start adjusting the values for each of those different items, you start to see that the total amount you've paid for the box has to be absorbed within each of those different categories, and you can start making a mental assessment of how best you think that should be done based on how much you value the cards and how much other people seem to be valuing them. So I'd just done an indicative version of that last week in the previous video, and what I'm going to show you today is an updated version based on some of the values that I've actually been seeing, either from cards that I've sold, cards that I've bought, cards that other people have been successfully selling, and things that I think seem to be broadly verified, and prices that seem to be across the board rather than things that are more of a one-off. And I think these values are still a little bit, I've tried to err on the conservative side, like I haven't taken some outlier where someone's paid heaps for a particular foil unique and said that's how much all foil uniques are worth. You know, just because a foil Philosopher's Stone sells for $5,000 or whatever, doesn't mean that the foil unique slot has an expected value of $5,000. Obviously, Philosopher's Stone is the most expensive within that cohort of foil uniques, but also you can't. The smaller the sample size, the higher the rate of error or the margin for error. So if you're just going off one particular sale or one particular card within the cohort of foil uniques, then your likelihood of making an error with your estimation of that value is going to be higher than if you're looking at how much have 150 foil uniques sold for and what's the average of that. So what I've tried to do here is take that more holistic picture across each of the slots, as well as looking at, demand is not something that's static in TCG markets. We see that when a new set comes out, there's obviously more people at the moment who are looking to collect a full set and to accumulate more cards quite quickly. And as those people do so, further cards that come to market might find a little bit softer demand because all those people have already filled up their collections, and that'll affect some slots more than others. There's also then a range of other factors that are completely beyond our ability to predict, things like how many new players will join the game. Will those new players or collectors be primarily interested in collecting full sets or building meta decks? And if they're more interested in building meta decks, for example, then you might see demand for singles that are more playable in meta decks going up, even if they're elites or uniques. And you might see demand for foil uniques, for example, not being quite as high because people who are playing the game don't necessarily need to buy those. But if you see more collectors coming in who are looking to pick up full foil sets or full sets, then you might see elites across the board, regardless of whether they're meta playable, being in higher demand, and certainly foil uniques being in high demand as well. But anyway, that's about projecting the future, and that's not what this video is about. What this video is about is just giving you a taste of where things sit currently. But it's important to mention that there are a range of other things, factors that affect the future, and this is simply just a snapshot in time. This is not saying that if you go out and buy an alpha booster box right now, you're going to definitely be able to sell your cards for an average of this amount, depending on the different slot that they come from. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get this total value from your box. It just means that at the moment, at the prices things have been selling for in the past few days, not guaranteed to continue, this is what the total value of a booster box has been, okay? The other thing I should really stress at the outset before I dive into the numbers a bit more is that this is not me saying these things are worth this much or have ever been worth this much. I had a few comments on the previous videos saying that I was trying to pump things up, or I was saying that things had a particular value. I also had a lot of really lovely comments. Thank you for everyone who said that they found it helpful, found it useful for understanding how to think about the values of cards within a box relative to the box value. But I just wanted to address those people who are sort of thinking that maybe I was trying to shill for it or pump it up or say things were worth a particular amount. It's not the intention at all. All I'm trying to do is demonstrate to you mathematical relationships between that second column, the hits per box, the average value per hit, which is malleable, and you put whatever you want in that column, which I'll show you in a minute, and then how that spits out a total value for the box on the right-hand side. It's simply just a mathematical exercise. It's not me putting a particular value on things. And as I said, the values that I've plugged into that middle column there today are things that are just my estimation of what things have been worth in the last week or so. So anyway, with all that out of the way, trying to give you a bit of context of what this is and isn't trying to achieve, let's dive into some of the numbers in a bit more detail. So these numbers here, the hits per box, again, the foil ratios here are broadly based on the distribution from the card sheet print numbers that Hayne had. So approximately 5 foil ordinaries, 3 foil exceptionals, 1.6 foil elites, and 0.7 foil uniques per box. 3 exceptional hits I've toned down slightly because I was thinking initially that there might be some exceptionals beyond the dual sites that people were chasing, but really it's just the dual sites. And I think 3 dual sites per box is a conservative estimate of how many you might hit, and the average value of $10 per dual site is pretty fair. They've sort of been selling for $12 or $13, but we've gone with $10. As far as the elites go, I've toned down the value, the average value of an elite hit to $3 because they have been selling quite slowly. I think as more players come into the game who are looking to actually build decks, a lot of the elites will move because they are really important and essential for people who are building decks. But at the moment, I think people who are just opening their own boxes and trying to fill out their sets, obviously the uniques are the harder ones to accumulate, so they're the ones that have the higher demand from collectors, whereas elites, people tend to broadly hit most of the ones they need for their collection once they reach a certain number of boxes. So I've toned down the average value of elites to $3, which gives us only a $93 contribution from those 31 elites. But you may well find that if you open up a box that from your 31 elites, you're actually able to sell a few more of them. The ones that I have sold, I've sold for sort of $10 or $15, depending on whether they're sites or spells and how desirable they are. And that's certainly a price that I've seen some elites moving for. But there have also been people with market offers of sort of $5 for bulk elites. And some elites have been moving at that price as well. So I've gone with $3, mostly based on the fact that they're actually quite hard to move. Not that you'll necessarily be able to pick up a particular elite for $3 or that you'll see many advertised at that price, but just that across the 31 elite cohort, it might actually be quite hard to move, say, 25 of them. So even if you move 6 at $5 or $10, I think a $3 average price is probably pretty fair. It might even be lower than that. Uniques, I've been surprised. So I initially, before everything released, I was thinking maybe, indicative value of $20. That seems to me to make a bit of sense for a unique, given that you get 8 or so in a box plus all the foils. But it turns out that whether it's because people want to complete full sets or just because uniques are quite powerful in this game and people want them for their decks, they've tended up towards $40 as a base price. And I think, although I've said this is the average value for uniques, I think really it's probably the low end value at the moment in week 1 that I've seen things selling for. Again, nothing to say that that won't change and that those prices won't slide as people complete their collections and more come to market. But it seems at the moment like most uniques are selling for about $40. And there are a cohort of about 12 or so uniques, which is Philosopher's Stone, the 4 cores, so Amethyst Core, Onyx Core, Ruby Core, and Aquamarine Core, Kythera Mechanism, the 3 Frank Frazetta uniques, the Ruler of Thule, Courtesan Theas, and Death Dealer. All of those, so that's Stone and the 4 cores, the 3 Frazettas, Kythera Mechanism, about 9 are selling for over $100. Some stones going up to sort of $500 generally. I've seen a range of those sold at that price, around $500. The cores tending to sell for $200 to $300, $150 to $300 actually, I'd say, and Kythera Mechanism just over $100, and the Frazettas have gone sort of swayed between $100 and $250 for the non-foil versions, which is pretty high, obviously, for a unique. So you've got that cohort of about 9 or 10 uniques that are sitting over 100 and up to 500, which drags the average up. Then you've also got a range that are sort of around $70 or $80, some of the more playable ones, like DreamQuest, Browse, that sort of thing. And then you've got a bunch of the unique sites, which have actually held a higher price than the spells, and they've been sitting around $65, $70. I've seen a lot of them moving at that rate on the Discord and in other channels, on Facebook, for example. Then you've got the sort of lower end uniques, some of the other spells, which are a bit more niche, and they've been hovering around that $35, $40 mark, sometimes up to $50. So 40 is at the lower end of the unique value, and uniques in terms of how much they're moving. Whenever I've seen posts go up, they tend to sell out of uniques within a day or so, in general. Not all the time, but in general. So uniques have actually been moving pretty well, and I think whenever you bring them to market at the moment, they tend to move pretty quickly at that price range. So what does that mean for the EV? That means that this $40 average for your 8 unique slots in a box at the moment is probably at the more conservative end, and that's contributing $320 to the value of a box. Then the foils, I'll talk about them sort of as a whole. So you've got the ordinaries, which I've sort of pegged at a $20-ish value. They tend to have been moving at that rate. There are a few foil collectors around who are building full sets, and there may be some more coming in. There's also then the players who are looking to, put foil sites in their foil basic sites in their decks, other foil ordinaries of, pet decks and things that they like. So the foil ordinaries have actually been holding pretty well at this $20 price, and people tend to be moving them pretty well around that price. Same for foil exceptionals around $40. Some of them going higher, some of the more desirable ones, and certainly foil dual sites, for example, have been $100, $150. There are want to buy posts on those at the moment, buy offers for those at $100, $150. Foil elites have tended to move at this $80 to $100 price, depending on what they are. And then, of course, you've got some elites within the cohort, like Grandmaster Wizard, the mixers that are selling for much higher prices, sort of $200 to $250. And then within the foil unique cohort, this is very similar to the non-foil unique price range. Most foil uniques that have been listed at $200 have gone pretty quickly. And then, of course, there are foil uniques that are worth significantly more, like the stone, the core, all those non-foil uniques that I said were over 100. The Frazettas, the cores, the stone, and the Kythera mechanism. Those foils are also significantly higher than the average. But most uniques that have been listed at 200 to 300 as foils have tended to move. So I've just put a rather conservative, on current values, $250 value to those at that 0.7 per box. And then the exceptional hits, as I discussed, is just sort of your average 3 dual sites-ish in a box at $10. And what that all spits out in terms of those values is $982 a box. And I think this explains why in week 1 we've seen the box prices suddenly go up, because people have realized that there seem to be enough players, collectors, and people who are interested in the game to keep that level of demand at that price for this week. Now, no promises that that's going to continue. Nobody knows whether all the collectors and all the players who are interested in the game have now filled out what they want. You may put something on the market tomorrow at one of these prices and it will just never sell. And maybe it will never sell for more than $5, even though it was $40 last week. There's absolutely no guarantees and things like this. And this isn't intended to say to you that if you have a sealed box, you should rip it open because you'll get $982 on average for the contents. That's just not the case. Nobody can predict that. But all this does is just show you what has been over the past week. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you enjoy the video, and if you've got any thoughts or comments on, what you expect to happen in the future, let me know. If there's something that you'd like to see or like me to take a look at in a future video of this kind, please let me know. I hope you've all been enjoying your box opening experience. I know I and many others probably opened more boxes than they wanted to. Somehow I've still got a sealed box sitting here. I've still got a few more over there on the other side of the room, which I've managed to resist getting into. But I do also have a couple of other box opening videos that I've recorded and I will be uploading very soon. And I hope you enjoy those as well, because it's been an absolute blast looking through the cards, filling out my decks. And certainly I think that's something that I found from week 1 of just playing the game, like teaching people the game. Having foils in Sorcery is kind of like foil equipment in Fab. Like, people love their cold foil equipment and their cold foil heroes because they're there on the board the whole game. I think foil avatars, obviously very similar to that in Sorcery, but foil sites, not like Magic lands where you play them onto your side of the board and sort of stack them up and you can't really see them very well, foil sites in Sorcery actually make up the board and they look fantastic. So I think that's something that has contributed a bit to the foil demand and will probably continue to. But anyway, rambling on a tangent there. Hope you've enjoyed the video. We'll see you very soon, and thanks for tuning into the Winning Agenda. See ya.